You're here because your time is limited. You only got 3 hours or less. So, I got 4 videos. Which one should you choose? A guy running from Africa, stories, business, or a guy just trying to get even? Stay tuned and you'll get their summary. Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast summary report. This is going to be episode number 5. We're going to review 4 videos today, 4 podcasts, and let me get right into it right now. First episode, The Diary of CEO with Ross Crook, the hardest geezer. This podcast was 2 hours and 3 minutes. Second, PBD Podcast, Home Team, episode 404. This is a 2 hour and 16-minute podcast. Third episode, a new one. I'm including the All In Podcast, episodes 176 with an hour and 41 minutes. And finally, the Lex Friedman Podcast, episode 413 with Bill Ackman. This one is 3 hours and 32 minutes with 44 seconds. This is a long one. But all right, let's get right into our content today. Our first video that we're talking about is The Diary of the CEO with Ross Cook, hardest greaser. Now, what I want to tell you about this one, the main message that I took from this podcast is the incredible story of this young man, Ross Cook. Now, shout out to the Diary of CEO's teams because they got the description on the timeline in YouTube. You can actually go into my timestamps and I'll give a little bit of description on those timestamps that you can just jump in. A lot of them I give you bigger chunks of that information. But right there you can also follow the story very easily. But what can I tell you about this story is his amazing transformation from a young rebellious young man that he didn't know what he wanted in his life to actually the modern Forrest Gump. Now, this young person had videotaped himself running the length of Africa in 352 days, 14 months. So I just give you the big summary of the story, right? The big summary of the podcast. But when you actually listen to it from start to finish, you get to see how he started. You get to see his parents, how he had the epiphany of what he wanted to do. He felt that he had no purpose in his life. But then at age 19, 20, that changed from a simple decision on a Saturday night to run from the bar, from the club that he was in at 3 o'clock in the morning back to where he would live. It was a 12-mile run. That's where it all changed for us. And then you start going into small little gains in his life on how he could start a half marathon, then another half marathon, then a full marathon, then several marathons. And that's what really sparked something into him that he could actually do this for a change in his life. So this story is quite impressive. How he just started running by himself, no team, no nothing, and he was the first individual to run from Asia to London. In Asia, it was Istanbul all the way to London. Almost no money, with his phone, recording things that he could record, and just sleeping in a hammock, and then a day by day by day, all the way back to London. So this is incredible how he started traveling the world, getting to know other cultures, and just running, like I'm telling you, like Forrest Gump, right? So, but what's important is in the main story of this, because a lot of his celebrity fame and celebrity status came from this Africa trip, from this trip to all the way on the south of Africa, all the way, and he ran all the way up to the north part of Africa, which took him, like I said, 362 days. But during this trip, his beliefs, his life, his newfound resiliency was tested. He thought it was going to only take a few months. He was naive enough to think that it would only take a few days because he was going to be able to do this and do this fast. Well, when you start something difficult and you have little time to plan, because he had only very little time to plan and very little money to plan, he is an incredible individual that you have the spectrum of a risk-averse person or an extremely risk-taker type of person. Well, he falls into this category. He was extremely risk taker. And he only decided to do this trip with a budget of $10,000. Not even a fraction of what he would need to do. Because now he had a team, so the team was following him, a van, a sword, his equipment, his meals, etc. It was just infallible that he was going to be able to take this. But this is where the story takes a nice and a positive turn, because when he was running completely out of funds, a text message that he sent to Steven from the Diary of a CEO a year ago from that moment was never heard, never responded to. At that moment was responded 365 days later, a year later. And they reached out, the Diary of a CEO team reached out to Ross Cook and asked, hey, is there any way we can help you? Well, he just let it all out. Wow, we need help, we need funding, we need this, we need that. And the Diary of a CEO team saved this project, saved Ross Coop, and actually is partnering with Ross Coop on another on a starting company. So quite a story, right? But that's not what the main story is, right? And I'll be brief because this is a summary. But in day 102, when he was going through the Democratic Republic of Congo, one of the most corrupt countries in Africa, well, let me tell you, remember that I said his resiliency was tested? How about his life? He was kidnapped. He was taken from his team as he was running. He was driven after 7 hours in the jungle in a small motorbike, taken to a local little village in the Republic of Congo, and then he was just trying to communicate with his team. So many days, a couple of days passed, and I think after in the second day, when they were able to communicate and they were able to, let's call him, rescue him. But after a small fee or a kidnap fee, that it was just honestly, if you think about it, pointless. But they just wanted something in return for him. So he was able to get out of the Republic of Congo. It was quite the impactful story. You could see his emotion when he's telling this story, especially because of the hardship it created with him and his team. It was just one of those experiences that he really thought he was going to die. He thought that this was going to be the end of the road, the end of his journey, and the end of the adventure. Quite impressive, quite interesting. So you could see how entire story comes together. Ross Cooper was, I could truly see a person that can inspire young men where they feel that they have no purpose, where they feel they don't know what they want to do. This story didn't need money. This story just needed a will to continue, a will to do something. And now you can see this young individual has started a new company, a new beverage, an energy drink company. It has run marathons, has run countries, has run a continent, and how just amazing his story is, and that could inspire a lot of young individuals, especially young men that right now they need somebody to focus on. So great story. My summary doesn't do it justice. Please go, and I truly recommend listening to this great story, especially because it has just so many incredible things that happened throughout his journey through Africa. So, Ross Coop, props to you, my friend. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep inspiring, and I hope I didn't even know who he was. I didn't know who Russ Coop was. So I'm going to do a lot more digging. And I love platforms like the Diary of a CEO because they tell you these types of stories. So I'll leave it with that. Now, video number 2, podcast, PBD Podcast, Patrick Bet David Podcast, episode 402. This was just a home team episode. This was one of the simpler ones that they've had in a while. They usually are having a lot of guests, but this one was just a home team. And what they did is they just had a series of different topics to discuss. They had the topic of Kristi Noem's memoir and her story. She's probably dropping out as being considered as a VP for Trump. and just what she did that got, let's say, main news attention and national attention on the Republican Party, but whatever. It's just interesting. But also, they go into some interesting stories and some interesting articles. One in particular, that there being some states in our nation that laws are changing for pedos, for pedophiles, where it's being more strict. And what I like about this story is you could see that the pendulum is swinging back to individuals that want to protect our children. They want judges and institutions. They want to have a harsher penalty for people that do this crime. Especially, it all starts with the viral video of a man in Europe that bits the ear of a young boy, and it was like, it looks so creepy. It's just one of those videos that it's just nothing bad happens, but it's just this individual, it just bits the ear of a young little boy, and you can see the just by X, and by placing it on and posting it on X, people found out who he was. The authorities were involved in it, and it just set in motion this entire conversation. And now how the laws are being more strict in certain states is here in our country, and we hope that this could become more of a penalty for these individuals across the nation, and you do not have more of this. Because when you damage the innocent of a young boy or a young girl, it's just you're ruining their lives. So it's just something that was interesting. It was quite a long conversation. It's about 20 to 25-minute conversation. So the timestamp is in the description. But it's just one of the ones that you could see Vinny's just passion of like, I'm glad this is finally happening. Da, 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 da. So, and the entire home team. So good for them, good for us, and hopefully other states follow suit. Then they get into the Israeli and Hamas topic, right? But now, because of what's been happening in our society at the moment, especially New York and other institutions and other universities, you have the George Soros funding of student protests, and how just a pro-Palestinian protest, but with young students that really don't know what they're doing. And it's just quite interesting, very very troublesome, because it's like you're having universities like Columbia in New York City just completely destroyed, some halls completely destroyed, students being arrested, teachers being arrested. It is just boiling up. And what Patrick is saying with his mindset of just questioning everything. Why is this happening? Why is this happening right now? What is it doing? So this is one of the things that was very interesting. Long conversation, but it's just, I recommend that part if you're interested in what's currently happening in our academic institutions, in our universities. Then they talk about something that could impact a lot of citizens in our, especially our young citizens. And it's the TikTok ban and who's benefiting from it. So you've seen this bill. You've seen how it's going to pass by law. Actually, by the time you're hearing this, it's actually already passed. The TikTok ban is now law, signed by law by Biden. But who's going to benefit? So now this bill says that the China has about 180 days to sell this company to either a foreign institution here in the States, an American company or something like that. If not, they are not going to be allowed to do here. But also the main topic that Patrick and the home team was saying is this bill has a lot of language that can be used to impact other companies like X. And I don't want to butcher this topic, but you can go in and do your own digging, and it just gives the government a lot more surveillance opportunities and a lot more surveillance control over our platforms and everything else. Finally, they jump into the Trump's trial and just the news stories behind that, how the judge is being just extreme against Trump. The gag order, finding him $9,000, and just Patrick just tears the judge a new one. It is just very interesting to see the passion of the home team of Patrick, and just how The story continues. Trump's trial still continues, and it's just one of those episodes. It's a good one. You can skip it if you want, but there's some important topics here to discover. All right. Well, video number 3. This is a new one, like I said, and this is the All In Podcast. The All In Podcast features 4 individuals that you can consider them disruptors, you can consider them innovators, you can consider them CEOs, tech minds, and entrepreneurs that quite a business portfolio underneath their belt, right? So let me start with the first one. You're talking about David Sachs. All right, David Sachs. Wait. David Sachs is a prominent entrepreneur. He has done investments in PayPal, Yammer, Cenefits. He's done a lot of craft ventures. He's a angel investor. He's been a CEO of Jammer, like I said. He was the right hand of Elon Musk. He's done so many different things. His companies have worked. He sold Yammer to Microsoft for $1.2 billion. It's just crazy, right? So that's one individual, David Sachs. The Chamath Palihapitiya. I butchered that, I'm for sure. But he's another one, another CEO disruptor. He's been the CEO of Social Capital, another angel investors. He's invested in startups like Slack, Box, SurveyMonkey, Yammer. He's done a lot of SPACs. SPACs is a special purpose acquisition companies. He was part of the Virgin Atlantic and Open Door SPACs, and just quite a tech investor, and done a lot of different either financial services, tech investment, healthcare, education, philanthropy. He's been involved in a lot of different things. So quite a portfolio, large portfolio as well. Then Jason Calacanis, another entrepreneur, another angel investors. He was the creator of This Week of Insight.com, Mahalo.com, a founder of a lot of these web pages and streaming services. He's organized the Launch Festival, one of the largest startup events in the world. They feature startup pitches, keynote speakers, networking opportunities, entrepreneurs, etc. So that's Jason. And then finally, David Friedberg. David Friedberg is another prominent entrepreneur. He was the creator of the Climate Corporation. The Climate Corporation was bought by Monsanto's for an estimate of $1 billion. He's done a lot of tech innovations for the agriculture. Goodness, I can't speak today. The agriculture industry, and then it's just some of his investments are also in the tech industry. He's been part of boards, etc. So these 4 individuals, let me say, have a lot of knowledge. All right. And what I find interesting about this podcast is they give their point of view on topics like the TikTok ban, right? And here they went into it, how it just became a law. David Sachs was completely against it. He was mad because, okay, here's another opportunity for the government to take more of our freedoms and just put a lot of the language that could target other companies. David Sachs was saying, this is goodbye Telegraph, and if Musk continues to get out of the line, possibly another tool for the government to go against X. So it's just very interesting, their points of view. They also talk about how Facebook and AI, they're going completely scorched earth. What they mean is they put all their information for the AI systems open is for others to help and just to continue to train it. And they're seeing how it's just progressing exponentially and getting better and improving, and they want to catch up to ChatGPT 4, ChatGPT 4.5, etc. And they're considering how Meta and others are doing open source, and then how OpenAI or ChatGPT is closed source, and how the organizations and companies that are doing open source are just gaining so much ground on closed source information. And if you want to see a true progress in your AI, how if you go to the open source side, it just you're going to kill the competition. And they compared these two stories, so that's a quite interesting point of view. I recommend if you like this topic of AI and how they're training their models and everything like that. It's a short discussion, like 15 to 20-minute discussion. I got the timestamp in the description. And just also, one of the things is they're revisiting the Tesla's first quarter results, and how they're discussing broad terms on Tesla. What are their future opportunities? Why did the stock do good? It's a recovering. It's a climbing back up, etc. But just not that. They're just having a broad discussion on Tesla and the future opportunities of Tesla. And this is very interesting because for a fan of Tesla, you can see how they just have so many different areas that Tesla can continue to be a disruptor. So many opportunities, and how Tesla can just become that more when I want to say lucrative, I mean for the company more productive. And then just the stock market, just the stock price currently what it is just not being looked at on a full scale on how it's not a car company, it's a tech company. And Tesla has just so much potential for the future. That and many other things. They close out their podcast, episode 176. They close out their podcast with the description on Biden's 2025 plan for tax hikes in the capital gains. And you can see how these four friends, they call themselves the besties. They have different political views, but they're pretty good friends, and they can have these types of discussions. But wow, you could see how it just didn't sit well with any of them, because if in fact all three of these tax hikes come into play, if Biden is reelected in 2025, essentially capital gain tax for people that make 1 million or more would be charged up to 44% in capital gain tax. 44%. It's just incredible. It's just quite a lot of money. And then you can see how they're not happy with this, and they're just really trying to give their point of view, give their thoughts, and they're not positive thoughts, to be honest with you. So quite a interesting podcast. If you like this type of content, business sides, tech minds and CEOs that've had their minds and ideas in a lot of different industries, I would recommend it to you. I kind of just popped into this podcast a while back ago, and I've listened to them in and out for the last few months or so. I don't catch every single episode, but it's very interesting. And when I do, I take a lot of nuggets and a lot of information from them. Jumping into our last review, the podcast of Lex Friedman, episode 413 with Bill Ackman. So now, for those that do not know who Bill Ackman is, he is a prominent American investor, a hedge fund manager, and philanthropist. He's the CEO for Pershing Square Capital Management, and he's one of the most well-known funds in the United States. He's a person that knows a lot about the financial industry, but also kind of a bit controversial on the way he does investing, because he's one of those first activism investings, and how he goes into a particular company, changes the board, helps, and it goes into a company that's having some difficult times. As an example, I'll give you one of them that they talk about, which is Chipotle. Joins the board, changes some of the board members, gets them to do different things, different activities, and then just revitalizes that company and makes it that much more profitable. So let me give a big shout out to Lex Friedman. I can just say this is only his 413 interview, right? The question that Lex asks is just so thoughtful, so well thought out. So he just is able to connect with each audience and just get them to feel comfortable, get them to feel at a safe place where they can just share and go into their discussions, right? I got a lot of the time stamps and descriptions of what the key points of this podcast is. As Bill being a financial and hedge fund manager, he talks about how he learned about investing, how he does research in companies, how just reading books of the Intelligent Investor and some notes from Warren Buffett and others, how that shaped his thoughts into how to invest. One of the main summary points that I can give you is, and he says it in the podcast 2 or 3 times, do not invest with money that you need right now. Do not invest money that will hurt you if you lose it. And do not invest by borrowing money or borrowing securities, going short on something, because this is very detrimental if you do not know how to do it well and if you time it incorrectly. He talks about a moment, his worst moment in his career, you can even say his worst moment in his life, how shorting a company almost broke him, almost destroyed him. So this is quite an interesting discussion. You can see how they talk about a lot of these different things, how he talks about being almost close to bankruptcy, how researching companies, his philosophy in investing, also his biggest win, one of the wins that he is known for now and in the future, and is the general growth properties, and how this company was pretty much just almost done for. Then he goes in, joins, transforms the board, and it was a penny stock worth in the 30 cents, 36 cents, 37 cents, and now the stock is selling over $31 or $32 back in February of this year. So I don't know if it's even higher, but he is just was quite his portfolio increased dramatically just on that single bet. And also Chipotle, he describes how when he saw a company with good fundamentals that had a hard time when the whole Chipotle controversy was going on, that they had some food poisoning and issues like that, and then the stock just lost like 50% of his value. He said, this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity that we can buy a company that is a good company at a discounted price, and then we can just transform it. And that's exactly what happened. And he said that one of his best investment that he recommends is investing in food companies, in large food corporations like McDonald's, like Chipotle. And he invests in Chipotle, and how it's just made him so much big returns because of these types of investments, right? Then also, as you talk about your wins, you also talk about your losses. And he talks about his worst time of his life, because he had issues in his personal life, going through a divorce, and he had issues in his business life. When things are not balanced, you can see how almost everything goes down. But in the financial life, in his hedge fund company, Pershing Squares Capital Management Company, they were shorting Herbalife. And I don't know if you heard about Herbalife, but it was a pyramid scheme company. And he was public. He was another very public individual, right? He would go into Fox, into CNBC, Fox Business, and all these. So a lot of his strategies were public. And he didn't have a good relationship with an individual called, hold on, it slips my mind, but this individual did not like Bill. So it was another billionaire. And this billionaire decided to buy the company Herbalife when Bill Ackman was shorting it. And when he purchased it and said, "Oh, I can't believe you're shorting this company. You're crazy out of your mind." They were both. It's one of the most viewed YouTube videos in either in Fox Business or MSN, MSN, etc. Goodness, well, he got squeezed. And when, if you don't know, the terminology of squeezed means that the price was going high and high and high on the short securities that he had purchased on Herbalife's, and he had to liquidate a lot of his assets to buy back these shares on Herbalife, and then he just lost over $1 billion in this company. So it was, he calls it one of his biggest epic failures. And just but he learned so much about this, and that was one. The other one was a value in pharmaceuticals. Also, this is one of his teachings. Let's say, if you are leading a company, or leading something in your life, and it goes against your core values, don't go into that. Don't jump into that opportunity. Don't go into that investment. And he said that when he joined Valiant Pharmaceuticals, uh, there were some red flags that he didn't follow or he didn't pay attention to. And in this one in particular, he tried to do the activist investing, and they were just too mismanaged and too horribly at this particular moment that he couldn't do it. They lost $4 billion in this investment. So that one, Valiant Pharmaceuticals and Herbalife, are his biggest losses. That's when he was so close to going bankrupt. He was just in a matter of let's call it weeks or maybe a month or two away from. There were other investors that are trying. They were actually actively trying to make him like go bankrupt because they didn't like him. Like I said, he's a controversial individual. That he did one thing that he said he was never going to do. He borrowed money to make a couple of investments, and he said, I am not going to lose this one, and he did not. And you can see the emotion that he was sharing about this story and how he was able at the lowest point just bring it back up, and now his company is still flourishing, is still doing a lot of different things, a lot of different positive investments. And like he said, you don't have to be 100% right. But what you have to do is make sure that your right calls are impactful. You can actually just be diversified with 10 or 12 different stocks. You don't need 25 or 50. But those 10 or 12 different stocks, you have done your research on the company, they meet your core values, and they're doing what you were thinking that they're going to do. Also, in this worst time of his life, he did say that it was very difficult for him to try and get out of this hole, but he said something. You have to set small little goals. Just achieve a little bit of progress. Because you know what? Progress compounds. I wrote that down. Progress compounds. And he said just a little bit, little by little, small little goals will help you achieve those results that you're looking for. So interesting conversation. Very, very interesting character, Bill. But he brings it all together with 3 different topics, and I won't discuss them too much, right? Because I would recommend you to go and listen to them. One, he's a Harvard graduate, both from history and an MBA. So everything that's happening right now with Israel and Hamas and the campus protests it holds quite a big impact in his heart, because he was pivotal in the dismissal of the president of Harvard, Dr. Gay, and he talks about that story. He talks about how he posted it on X and everything, and how he just feels that our current educational institutions are just infected by this DEI ideology. So that's one. The next one is Neri Oxman, which is a brilliant scientist and his partner, and quite just an amazing story how this scientist from MIT, and Lex Friedman has interviewed her as well. So you can find her in the search bar for Lex's podcast. How she's doing just amazing things. And because she was the partner of Bill Ackman, they found a couple of little plagiarisms, clerical errors, not even plagiarisms. And Business Insider does this whole smear story of Neri, the wife of Bill Ackman, and it's just how they were trying to destroy her life, trying to make her life and his life a living hell. And Bill is like so passionate about it that he is thinking of following legal actions against Business Insider. So that was an interesting story as well. And then finally, he just finishes the podcast with the importance of free speech, the importance of the X platform, and how it has does so much good for our current society, which is a free speech absolutist platform, and how Trump, and then what's in the future, right? So he said good things about Trump in 2016, and that got a lot of heat underneath him, and he's doubling down right now. He's almost endorsing Trump, or he's saying that that's the best path for our current society right now, for the American society. So that's very interesting. He talks about just a little bit of the future, what plans he has, and how that all will come together, and more things to come. Lex really enjoyed this interview, Bill as well. So they said that it'd be great if we can do it again. It'd be great if we see each other in the future, and I believe they will. So great story. If you want to learn about investing, listen to it. If you want to read some of the books that he's talked about, Intelligent Investor and others, just listen to this. I recommend this podcast. It is a bit long, so you can actually cut it up into smaller chunks. But awesome interview. Lex Friedman, I hope I learned from you. All right, everyone, thank you so much for joining, following episode 6, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you.